Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and good Shabbos from Huntington. Kind of a mixed bag weather-wise today. When I walked to shul this morning, the sun was out and it was pretty nice. And then this afternoon, we had lightning, a little bit of thunder, and plenty of rain. And now the sun was starting to poke its eyes out again at us towards the evening. So it looks like it's going to turn out to be a pretty good, pretty nice Erev Shabbat. And even if it does rain a little bit, you know what? It's still Shabbat, and we're glad to be here. All right, so this evening, we're in the second week of June, the second Shabbos of June, and it's Pride Month. And so I'm going to have Sam come up. He's going to bench licht for us this evening, and he has a special reading in honor of Pride.
Creator of light, source of wisdom, you know the depth of our human soul. As you fill this world with the glance of your presence, so let me fill my world with the calm wisdom that love does not ask what, but instead ask whom. May we, as we watch the two flames of memory and practice enlighten this space, remember all parts of our stories and make our space for all that we are. Creator of light, source of wisdom, may your light fill every inch of our bodies and may exceed all forms. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahalik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Sam. You're welcome. All right, let's begin Kabbalat Shabbat, the service welcoming Shabbat, giving us a few moments in between the work week and starting the formal evening service, chance for us to relax, to breathe a little bit, to let go of the week. And this evening, let's start with the responsive reading from page 9. Page 9 this evening. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain.
On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share.
There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a hoard of plenty that can never be exhausted.
On Shabbat, we stand and wonder before the mystery of creation.
There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others.
On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal.
So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. All right. Lecha Dodi, coming to us from Sfat, the mystical city in the Galil, also an artist's colony. All right, so there's something about mystics and artists that go together. But Kabbalat Shabbat comes to us from the mystical city of Sfat, and so does Lecha Dodi. And so this evening, verses 1, 2, and 3, 8, and 9. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Yishmi'ahanu el ham-yuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, L'shem ul-tiferet v'li-tchila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor ha'bracha, Merosh mikedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, kumitzi mitoch afecha, rav lahak shebet b'yemecha b'cha, vehu yachamol alayichem la, lecha dodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nikabela, yamin u'smol tifrotzi, V'et Adonai taritzi, al yadish ben partzi, b'ni smecha v'nagila, lecha dodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nikabela, boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uvtzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, p'nei Shabbat nikabela. Page 22, verses from Psalm 92, the Psalm for Shabbat. Every day has its own psalm, and Psalm 92 is the one designated for Shabbat. And it's part of what I call the 90s, because when you do a full Kabbalat Shabbat service, you include a number of psalms, and they are all from the 90s, except one, Psalm 29. But that's another story. But most of them come from the 90s, and Psalm 92 is the psalm for Shabbat. And let's read the English paragraph, the outdented English paragraph, together, and then we'll sing Tzaddik Katamar. A psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai. How very subtle your designs. The brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. Tzaddik katamar yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yihiske shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu o jenuvun beseva deshenim vera'ananim yihiyu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo havlatabo. Let's turn to page 24 and greet the angels, the two angels that come to spend Shabbat with us. Everything on Shabbat is doubled. We have 2 loaves of challah. We have 2 angels. And according to the mystics, we get a neshama yetera, nice Aramaic way of saying an extra soul that comes to be with us on Shabbat. So page 24, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShahari, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Boachem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Baruch hu ni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. All right. Feels good to enter into Shabbat. Concluded the welcoming of Shabbat. The Shabbos bride is with us. The angels are with us. Our neshama yetera is with us. And we are with each other, even if it's through the modern wonder of technology known as YouTube. But we're now on page 145, Chatzi Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlik malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, ubizman kahariv, v'yimiru amen. Yehesh me'raba mevorach, v'olam lo me'almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitalev, v'yithalal, shmei dekudesha, brichu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'yimiru, amen. Page 146, Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Page 147, let's read responsively. Adonai, your majesty is proclaimed by the marvels of earth and sky. Sun, moon, and stars testify to your power and wisdom.
Day follows day in instant succession, and the years vanish, but your sovereignty endures.
Though all things pass, let not your glory depart from us. Help us to become co-workers with you and endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu v'shachbeinu uvkumeinu nasiach bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki heim chayenu v'yorech yameinu v'yorech yameinu uvahem nege yomam v'layla ve'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. V'ahavta ha'et Adonai Elohecha bechol avacha, ubechol nafshecha, ubechol miodecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavecha, hayom ha'levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, uvlektecha havaderech, uveshokbecha uvkumhecha, ukshartam li'ot al yadecha, v'hayu latotafot beineinecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeruhu va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'tem kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Page 151. Let's read responsively. We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all.
Yet that oneness of roots are grasped is imperfection and evil abound.
Before our eyes there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness.
There's evil enough to break the heart, and there's good enough to exalt the soul.
When will redemption come?
We're grant everyone what we claim for ourselves.
Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High.
We learned God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Top of page 152. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nohora tehilot, O Sefele, Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokeyam lifnei Moshe, Zeli anu v'yamru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, V'nehemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, U'ga'alom yad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. Top of page 153, first two lines of Hashkivenu, and then responsively in English. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, V'ha'amidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, V'ha'amidenu shomreinu lechayim. Give us a place to rest, O God. Shelter us in the long, soft evening shadows of your truth. You are true protection and safety. In your presence we find love and acceptance. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Page 154, Vishamru, verses from the book of Exodus, from the book of Shemot. It's not Shabbos without it. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We are at the centerpiece of the evening service, the Amidah. And we're going to begin on 155, chanting together, and then chanting 156 and 157 together. And then we'll go silent 158 through the end on 167. And you can chant along with us. You can read the prayer to yourself, either in Hebrew or English, or offer up your own meditation at this time. But we're going to begin together on 155. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, v'Ezrat Sarah. Gibor li'olam Adonai, mechaye metim atarav lehoshia, mogrit hatal, mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye metim berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al givurot, Umido melech, melech b'mit u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata l'hachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh ha'metim. If you're still completing rather your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. We're going to continue on page 160, reading together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Thank you. Page 163, a little bit of hoda'ah, some gratitude. Lots to be grateful for this week. For me, lots of little things and some big things. Mom and Cliff are here, and so very grateful for that. So I don't get to read any greetings from Mom or Cliff when we at the end of services, but that's okay because they are here in person. So I'm very grateful for that. So, and I know that we all have things to be grateful for. It doesn't have to be anything huge. Could be anything. You finished a novel. There you go. Grateful for that. It means you can start another one. But 163, let's read responsively at the top. For the good in us, which calls us to a better life, we give thanks.
For the strength to improve the world with our hearts in our hands, we offer praise.
For the desire in us, which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful.
For life and nature, harmony and beauty, the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being.
All right. Page 164, close out with Shalom Rav, prayer for peace. All the major prayers either end or have a request for peace, for wholeness, for unity, which is what the root Shin Lamed Mem means. So page 164 at the top, and then the last two lines after we're done singing. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam V'tov Benecha Levarech Et Amcha Yisrael Bechol Eit Uvechol Sha'a Bishlomecha Shalom Rahav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Shalom Rahav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam Tasim Leolam Tasim Leolam. Praise are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivorech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Page 253, jump ahead a little bit. Mishaberach, the prayer for healing. And as we ask God to remember those who are ill, we too remember those who are ill and might need us to reach out, say hello, text message, phone call, even an email. And if you know someone who has need for a little bit of healing or a lot of healing this Shabbat, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, keep them close to your heart and in your thoughts. And after Shabbat, reach out to them. Middle of page 253, Mishaberach. Mishaberach Ahavoteinu Mikor habracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mikor habracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. All right. Prayers for our community, page 258 and 259, for our congregation, for our country, for Yerushalayim and Medinat Yisrael. Let's read these together. Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us, love of Torah, devotion in prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levarcha b'yirah na'avod. Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. Sha'alu shalom Yerushalayim, Yish layu ohavai.
Amen.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper.
Amen.
Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael, V'goalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Smichat Geulatenu, Hagein Aleha Biavrat Chasdecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha V'amitcha L'Rosheha, Sareha V'yoetzeha, V'takneim Be'etza Tova Milfanecha, V'natata Shalom Ba'aretz, V'simchat olam liyoshveha v'nomar amen. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone, and good Shabbos. All right, we are rattling through the book of Bamidbar. And as I said last week, there's a thread that runs through this particular part of the Torah. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned about how we speak to one another. All right, it started back in Ba'alotecha, where Miriam and Aharon were busy talking about Moshe behind his back and saying some not so nice things about his wife. And they didn't think anybody was listening, but God was listening. And there was some punishment. Last week with Shlach Lecha, we had the slaves coming back, and instead of telling the whole truth about Eretz Yisrael, they kind of embellished the truth and got the people all riled up. And so God decides to teach them a lesson. And so they have to wander the wilderness, the Midbar, for 40 years until the generation that came out of Mitzrayim, out of the narrow place, dies and is replaced with a new generation. And now this week we have Korach, who with his band of merry malcontents tries to, lead an uprising, almost have a coup, as it were, in ancient Israel. And part of the problem with Korach is how he addresses Moshe and what he says in a public forum. So we're slowly working through individuals speaking harshly about someone to a small group speaking harshly that gets the entire group riled up and winds up with the entire group being punished. And now we have another person calling out a leader. And it's not necessarily what he says that's bad, it's how he says it. And so we have this rebellion of Korach, Datan, Abiram, and On. And they question the leadership of Moshe and Aharon, and they accuse them of acting holier than everybody else. Right? Now, this is an interesting accusation because it's God is the one that puts Moshe in control. Moshe, and we know the story, Moshe really doesn't want to be in control, but Korach accuses him and Aharon of taking all the really good leadership positions. And he says, didn't you say that all Israel is holy? Right? So why are you setting yourselves up? Moshe as the leader, Aharon as the high priest, Aharon's children as the other priests. And so to make matters worse, right? So there's that. And then you have Datan and Abiram who say, you brought us out of the land of milk and honey to die in the desert. All right. And so if that made you pause to think, yes, they're talking about Egypt. And they're saying that whatever we had in Egypt, as horrible as it was, is better than being here right now. And so you know how this is going to end, right? And so Moshe calls for a meeting the next morning in front of the Mishkan. And he says, bring your fire pans with incense, and we're gonna hash this out. And so by time the morning rolls around, the entire community is siding with Korach. Right? So it's a bit of a lesson that, Moshe calls for a meeting, and from that time until the next morning, obviously Korach and his people were going around and speaking harshly about Moshe and Aharon, and behind their backs, obviously, and turned the people against them. So God says to Moshe and Aharon, get away from them. Go away, and I'm going to destroy the entire community. And we'll start over again. And so Moshe, as always, pleads on their behalf and says to God, if one person is sinning, are you going to destroy everybody? Right? This is Korach doing this. It's not all of Bnei Yisrael all of a sudden doing this. They've been instigated by what this man has been saying behind my back, behind Aharon's back. And so you're going to destroy them for just being sheep and following Korach? And God says, all right, have the community back away from Korach's people and their tents. Right? Have them step back because it's not going to be good. And so Moshe says to Korach and to the community, all right, if Korach and his people die by natural deaths, meaning if nothing happens now and they just live their lives, it means that I have not been designated by God to lead. Well, in one of the great moments that I'm waiting to see on the big screen, the earth opens up and swallows Korach, Datan, Abiram, their families, and 250 followers. And then the earth closes back up. And Eleazar, one of Aharon's sons, goes and collects the fire pans that they had brought for this kind of duel of offerings. And he pounds them out and places them on the altar, and it's the plating that was used for the altar. So we think that this would be it, right? The people see this miracle, right? This miraculous punishment of Korach and his malcontents. And the very next day, the people rise up and accuse Moshe of bringing death to the community, right? So they say, you brought this on us, all this punishment, and it's your fault. And once again, God says to Moshe, let me destroy them. We'll start anew. And a plague breaks out. And Moshe convinces Aharon to put his fire pan on the altar. And by time the plague ends, 14,700 are dead, as a lesson for what they did. After this, Moshe gathers up the staffs, the sticks, the long staffs of all of the tribal leaders, all of the tribal chieftains, and he puts them inside the Mishkan. The next day, he goes in and he sees that Aharon's staff has sprouted blossoms and almonds, and everybody else's had just stayed the way it was. And so he leaves Aharon's staff in the sanctuary as a reminder that out of all of the chieftains, Aharon is the one who was picked. All right, so enough of this. We're taking everything. This is how it's going to be. And then Moshe says, once again, the Kohanim are going to oversee the rituals. The Levi'im are going to be the helpers, but they're not allowed to touch the altar or the instruments. And the tithes go to the Levi'im, right? 1/10 of everything. And the Levi'im, of whom the Kohanim are a subset, they don't get any land when they go into the land of Israel, when the land is conquered, but they live off of the donations to the Mishkan and then later to the temple. And that's where we are. That's this week's Torah portion, Parshat Korach, in a nutshell. All right. A while back, I said that the first Friday night of the month was going to be Ask the Rabbi. And last week was the first Shabbat of June, but we didn't do that. But on a technicality, today is the first Shabbat of the month of Tammuz. We just had Rosh Chodesh. So I'm going to fulfill my promise that the first Shabbat of the month, I didn't say if it was the English month or the Hebrew month, we would have asked the rabbi. So I got a question a little while ago, is when were women allowed to become rabbis? Is this a sign that Judaism embraces feminism? That's a pretty interesting question, because it depends upon whom you ask whether or not Judaism embraces feminism. And the more traditional you get, the answer seems to be no. And the more liberal towards the non-traditional part, the more it seems yes. Traditionally, rabbi means teacher. That's what it means. All right. If you ever come by and you see my Te'udah, my ordination certificate, it said that I am a rabbi and a sage of Israel. Right. I'm a teacher and a sage. Now, a sage doesn't mean somebody who's full of wisdom. It was another name for a teacher. And so that's what we are. We're not endowed with special gifts. We don't forgive sins. We don't do things like that. We teach. And so the traditionally the rabbi who was the teacher was an observant Jew, always male at this point, knowledgeable, would resolve disputes, would teach the community. Right? The one thing that we didn't have to do as rabbis was be able to lead services. That would go to someone who knew the liturgy. Well, rabbis know the liturgy. We just might not know all the tunes. We might not know all the nusach. But the rabbi didn't have to lead services, right? He was primarily a teacher. And the thing with why women weren't traditionally rabbis was that there's this concept in Jewish law called positive time-bound commandments. What that means is that there are things you're supposed to do, a positive mitzvah as opposed to a negative mitzvah, but they're time-bound. You have to do them at a certain time, right? So men are obligated to put on talis and tefillin in the morning. And we have a window of time that we can do that. And you have to daven, you have to pray 3 times a day. And so for men, it's less of a problem. But in the minds of the ancient rabbis, they couldn't obligate women to do that because ostensibly they would be taking care of their families. If you have an infant who has to be fed at a certain time, and you think, well, I have to put on talis and tefillin and let the kid, shry a little bit, right? The rabbi's like, no, you take care of the family. And so women were exempted from these mitzvot. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not allowed to do them. It's just that they're exempt. They're not required. And in the negative commandments, everybody's required not to do them. So this idea about women having a different role, that kind of flies in the face of modern feminism, and we can talk about that some other time. But it's not until the Haskalah, right, the Enlightenment in the 18th, and that carries into the 19th century, that the idea was seriously considered that women could be rabbis. And it didn't gain much traction, right, because there was basically one group of Jews, right, the traditional Jews, or if you weren't a traditional Jew, you might have been a non-observant Jew. But it's not until the Reform movement gets traction in Germany that they really start to think about this question. And now here's the thing. When we talk about women being ordained, women being rabbis, it's an American phenomenon at the beginning in a lot of ways, right? It's because America, the land of freedom, the land of equality, we start to bend tradition a little bit, which is a good thing, I think. All right. So the Reform movement on June 3rd, 1972, 50 years ago, the first woman was ordained as a rabbi in America. And she was ordained at HUC, JIR, right, the Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, and her name is Sally Present. All right, so 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago, the first woman ordained in America. The Reconstructionist movement, founded by Mordechai Waxman, who himself started out as an Orthodox Jew, taught at the Jewish Theological Seminary for many years, lived to be over 100. His daughter was the first woman in America to have a bat mitzvah ceremony. In May 19th, 1974, at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, Sandy Eisenberg Sasso became the first Reconstructionist woman rabbi. It's not until May 12th, 1985, that the conservative movement catches up at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, and Amy Eilberg becomes the first conservative woman rabbi. Now, the reason the conservative movement was so far behind was that there was an amazing scholar named Saul Lieberman, who, by all accounts, was probably the greatest Talmudist in the world and in the 20th century. And he had an iron fist on what was allowed and what wasn't allowed in the conservative movement. And he said that while he was alive, it would never happen. Well, he died on a plane going to Israel, and shortly thereafter, JTS started to accept women candidates for ordination. So it wasn't until 1985 that Amy Eilberg, and I know Amy, and she's a wonderful, wonderful rabbi. And so 1985, so the conservative movement tends to be a little bit behind everybody else. Now that leaves us with the Orthodox, right? Now the Orthodox, when we talk about Orthodox Jews or traditional Jews, everybody thinks it's monolithic, but it's not. There are a lot of factions in the Orthodox world. You have modern Orthodox, you have the Hasidim, you have the Haredim, you have religious Zionists, you have the Hasidim, you have all sorts that tend to get lumped together as Orthodox because they hold fast to Jewish law. But there are women who are Orthodox rabbis. Now, they've not been ordained from major rabbinical schools or yeshivot, but they're out there. In 2009, June of 2009, Rabbi Avi Weiss, who is an amazing rabbi, who is very socially aware and socially active and very traditional, ordained Sarah Hurwitz. And he ordained her as Maharat. That was her title, Maharat, which is an acronym, which means Manhiga Hilchatit Ruchanit Toranit, a leader of Jewish law, spirituality, and Torah. And a little bit later, she changed her title to Rabbah, ostensibly the female or the feminine version of rabbi, Rabbah. When at my rabbinical school, there was a woman who came after I was there as a teacher, and her name, and I just blanked on her name, Mimi Feigelson. Mimi Feigelson, an amazing scholar of many things, but especially Chassidut, was ordained by Shlomo Carlebach, and then later ordained by a Beit Din after Shlomo died, of three of his acolytes, three of his followers. And she doesn't use the title rabbi or rabbah or anything like that because she understands that it's fraught with controversy. Now, here's the interesting thing. Americans did not ordain the first women rabbis. Right? Now, maybe ordained from a rabbinical school, but we have from 1590 to 1670, a woman named Asenat Barzani lived, and she was a rabbi. And there's there's always disagreement of whether she was or whether she wasn't, but she is considered by many to be the first woman rabbi that we have record of. From 1805 to 1888, these are lifespans of people. Chana Rachel Verbermacher, also known as the Maiden of Ludmir, is the first, and I think only, independent female Rebbe of a Hasidic group. Right, so the Hasidim have the maiden of Ludmir in their ranks, along with the great Rebbes. But the first woman who was ordained in the way that we think of rabbis being ordained was a woman named Regina Jonas. And she lived in Germany. And she was ordained in 1935. She was a Reform rabbi, but she is the first officially ordained woman rabbi. And she died in Auschwitz. And she was largely forgotten by history until the 1990s, when scholars discovered her papers. And last time I was in Berlin in the early 2000s, I spent a Shabbos with a rabbi, a woman who wrote the first, I think it's the only, biography of Fräulein Rabbiner Jonas. And it's a good read. It's an amazing read. And she was an amazing woman, as all of the women rabbis are. But America might have the first American rabbis to be ordained, women rabbis to be ordained, but the world was ahead of us in a lot of ways. So there you go. Ask the rabbi about women and women becoming rabbis, and there's your answer. Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
Sam, my watch has stopped. What time is it?
Kiddush.
It's Kiddush time. Yes, it is. All right. Vayehi erev vayehi voker yom hashishi. Vayechulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzivam. Vayechal Elohim bayom hashvihi melachto asher asa. Vayishbot bayom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa. Vayavarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i. Vayikadesh oto. Kivo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. Savri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lamikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki banu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava uvratzon, Inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen.
All right. As we move to close this evening's service, page 282. If my Siddur would only work. Page 282, Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goye haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot hadama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, V'gohor aleinu kecho hamonam,
ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו את מסולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad.
This week we observe the following yahrzeits: Adolf Bro, husband of Jetta and father of 10. Louis Cohen, David and Billy Glick's uncle. Carl Fantel, Evelyn Wiles' relative. Ben Kalman, Sharon Weed's father. Ronnie Kazan, Martin Kazan's wife. Gertrude Mazo Kirsch, related to Steve and Paul Jacobson. Jane Schoenfeld Altman, daughter of Ike and Francis and sister of Tony. Ben Botnick, Jan Chertow's father. Hyman Cohen, David Cohen's grandfather. Edward Greenwald, Diane Shuttle's uncle. Rose Mazes, Alice Herbert's aunt. David Ritter, Rosemarie's husband. Dolly Sampson Kahan, relative of Fred Ziffer. Gertrude Rose, relative of Elaine Skoll. Isabel Strauss Silverman, Harold Strauss's sister. Lillian Steva Berger Frieden, mother of Nick and his brother Joshua, wife of Seymour. Dr. Herman K. Poland, relative of Ronald Poland. Edward G. Poland, relative of Lake. Benjamin Siegel, Frida Kagan's uncle. Eric Stephen Hartz, son of Maury and Suzanne Hartz. Glenda Bihar Marcus, Tori Witcher's sister. Ella Schenker Ritter, David Ritter's first wife. Philip Weinberger, Richard's brother. Pesach Weisberg, Art's father. Edna Kauf, Etta Steinberg's mother. Donna Schneid, Tori Witcher's sister. Samuel Schiff, Mary Cantor's father. Rena Stern's grandfather. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May their memories be a blessing to us all, and may they always rest in peace. Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra kirutei v'yamlik malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach li'olam v'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'richu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran v'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
All right, friends, that brings us to just about the end of services. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and then on Sunday morning at 9. Sunday afternoon, we'll have our summer school sessions for Let My People Know, and it's a taste of Talmud. And we'll be looking at one of my favorite pieces of the Talmud. And so tune in 3 p.m. via Zoom. And then Monday night, we'll have our deep dive into Genesis. This week, the link should work. I know we had some problems with it last week, but that's Monday evening at 6:30. And then Wednesday evening, it's the best little Yiddish choir anywhere. Scott and Tam will be bringing their Yiddish game, and you bring yours. Get your Yiddish on, get some singing done, and have a good time. Have a good time. And then we'll be back next Friday night for services. Again, I want to welcome Mom and Cliff. It's always great to have them here, even if I don't see their writing on the YouTube. That's okay. They send Shabbat greetings to everyone this week. And I think I got it all. I just want to say a quick hello to Pauline Kaplan and Rose Ritter, and to a shout out to all the people in Brooklyn, Melanie and Patty Ann and Aaron and all the others who are watching, and to everybody who's watching, a shout out to you all. I think that's it. Just we'll close out with, we'll do a Don Olam this week. We'll do a Don Olam. Page 321.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Li'et Nasa B'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra V'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levahado Imloch Nora Vehu haya, vehu hoveh, vehu yiyeh betifara, vehu echad ve'en sheni, la'amshil lo la'achbira, beli reshit, beli tachlit, ve'lo ha'oz ve'hamisra, vehu eli ve'chai go'ali. V'tzor hebli be'yetzara, ve'hu nisi umanos li, menat kosi biyom ekra, bi'ahado afkid ruchi, be'eti shan bi'ayira, v'im ruchi geviyati, Adonai li, Velo Yira.
All right, let's see who is saying hello to us today. Jenny Bro, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Summer has arrived. Indeed, it has. Thank you, Jenny. Shabbat Shalom to you. Tori Witcher, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Back to you and the Rabbi, Tori. ML and Herman Glazer. Well, there they are, wishing all a good Shabbat and a week of peace. Amen, amen. Suzanne Hartz, Shabbat Shalom from Maury and Suzanne. David Johnson, good Shabbat from Patricia and me. All right, well, everyone have a great Shabbat. Enjoy the weather, even though it's hot and humid. I remember people saying in the winter, we can't wait till the summer. Well, as Jenny says, summer is here. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. We'll see you soon. Be careful out there.